Hey guys, welcome to the clubhouse. I'm Billy Jackson. This is my cat Tack, and today we're going to be giving you the spoiler-heavy review of Avengers: Infinity War. I'll say it again: spoiler-heavy review of Avengers: Infinity War. If you have not seen the movie and you care about spoilers and don't want to know what's happened in the film, just go watch my normal regular review and go watch the movie, because it must be seen in theaters. This movie is epic, and I'm going to give all the reasons why I love this movie and some of the reasons why, some of the little problems I have with it, which are very minute. But anyway, we have a lot to get to. I had to write it all down because there's a lot to this movie, and I'm not even going to get to all of it. I just don't want this video to go on for 20-30 minutes. I will try to wrap this all up pretty quickly, so you guys don't have to put up with me and me rambling, because I will start rambling, because I could talk about this movie for hours and hours and hours. But anyway, first off, the very first scene in the movie is just, it's epic in itself, and all the scenes of this movie is epic. This whole movie is epic, and the reason why I say that, it's epic to me, and I know I'm biased because I'm a huge comic book fan, at least comic book lore fan, and I love crossovers. Most of my comics that I have in my collection are, straight crossovers where there's team ups, against a common evil and stuff like that. I love stuff like that, and when I used to collect comics, that's what I really loved. So when this MCU came out, I was just finally getting exactly what I've always read and loved about comic books back in the day that I love about the movies now. And it's finally come to a head. 18 movies later, bam, we get Infinity War. And right in the first 5 minutes, you get Hulk and Thanos fighting. I mean, come on. Now, in the comic books, and this Infinity Gauntlet storyline is a straight story from the comics. Of course, they had to deviate in certain different directions and ways because they don't own all the rights to all the stories, and to all the characters in the stories. So they had to change a few things up a little bit. And in my opinion, it's one of the best adaptations from comic book to film, to be able to put all these heroes together and make it make sense and be fluent and tell one good story is brilliant, and it's incredible that they did that. But anyway, starts off Hulk versus Thanos, and as I was saying before, in the comic book, Thanos straight chokes up the Hulk and just pimp smacks him. And I mean, the Hulk has nothing for Thanos. Thanos is bigger, stronger, and just more powerful altogether. Plus, in the movie, and I understand they have to downpower some of the characters because it wouldn't make sense if they had all the powers that they have in the comic books. Anyway, that being said, Thanos did have the gauntlet, and he did have the Power Stone, and so him taking on the Hulk and beating the Hulk was not new to me. I know some people might be upset about it, but it happens in the comic, and it is true to the lore that Thanos can whoop the Hulk down. Unless Hulk gets the madder he gets, the more powerful he gets, so if he ever became the World Breaker Hulk, he could probably have a chance against Thanos. But anyway, in this movie, Hulk gets his butt handed to him by Thanos, which didn't surprise me at all, and I knew I was going to get that fight. I didn't know it was going to be in the first 5 minutes of the movie. So right off the bat, they had me. Bam! Then what do? Kill Loki. And I had a feeling that Loki was going to die in this movie anyway, but the way they did it and the way they had a dynamic between him and Thor, and him just cracking his neck in front of Thor and just throwing him down and being like, no resurrections this time. He's talking to us, the audience, because Loki has died multiple times and has come back. But he's telling us no more. Loki is dead for sure. But Ebony Maw, that is the Thanos' Black Order guy who's preaching at the beginning. His proclamations and his speeches in the first, act of the movie is just brilliant. I love how he's just like, children of Thanos, we're going to murder you in the name of Thanos. Rejoice, rejoice that we're going to kill you. He's just so smooth and just, cold with his words, but it almost makes you understand, please kill me. I just loved his interaction with the rest of the characters. But anyway, beats down the Hulk, kills Loki, kills Heimdall, and Heimdall, before he does though, Heimdall, shoots the Hulk to Earth. And in the comic books, it's a Silver Surfer that crashes into Doctor Strange's building, but in this movie, it's the Hulk, so they kind of twisted up things there a little bit, but it's fine with me. It still was beautifully done to give us that homage to the comics. And then we get Bruce Banner, Hulk, Iron Man. Some of the best interaction of characters is these three guys, the three of the smartest men on the planet, interacting with each other, and Tony Stark and Doctor Strange being how they are, in the comic books and in the movies. They're alpha males, their egos are way above their heads, and they're interacting, and and the funny banter in this movie, and not just between these characters, but throughout the whole movie, is just awesome. I was scared that the humor was going to be overwhelming like it was in Thor Ragnarok, and that's what turned me off to Thor Ragnarok, was the humor in it. I still liked the movie. I didn't like it in the beginning, but I've seen it 2 or 3 more times, and I like it now better than I did, but I still hate the humor in it, and I was afraid this movie was going to have it, but it doesn't. All the humor is fluent. Some land, some don't, but most do. And that was very pleasing to me, the levity that they had. Just a little bit of levity. Half the people in the universe are going to die, but it's still a little levity between the characters, which I thought was very well written and very well acted as well. So, then you have the Black Order, which is Thanos' minions, coming down to get the Time Stone for Doctor Strange, and you have this epic battle between them, and Bruce Banner's trying to get the Hulk to come out, and he won't, because, in my opinion, no one really knows for sure why, but there's a lot of speculation online, which I agree with, that the Hulk is scared to come out in this movie, because he just got his butt handed to him. I mean, he got beat down, and he's been kind of beat up before by like Thor and Iron Man and stuff, but not to a point. I mean, he was in a gladiatorial combat fighting big monsters and big characters for 2 years without even losing a fight, and then here comes Thanos and just beats the crap out of him. He's scared to come out, which I think is going to be a plot line for later Avenger movies. Later on, is the Hulk coming out and being like the World Breaker Hulk that I know, which is the strongest Hulk of them all, and the scariest Hulk of them all. But anyway, that being said, Hulk's trying to, Banner's trying to get the Hulk to come out, but he won't because he's scared, in my opinion. But they still are battling the Black Order and losing. So they get captured and floating onto the donut ship. Bam, they're gone. But Ebony Maw in that whole sequence fighting against Doctor Strange and Iron Man was just beautiful and brilliant. And Call Obsidian, which is the big hulking guy for the Black Order. He was well written and well acted as well. Sorry, don't mean to say well 100 times, but well, Anyway, let's see. Then you get to the Vision and the Scarlet Witch scene, which in the comic books they do get together and fall in love and actually have children. But that's a whole nother story. But they do fall in love, so I was glad that they did that. They put this. It was kind of in Civil War, they were kind of getting together a little bit. Vision's kind of flirting with her, and she's not necessarily flirting back, but being reciprocal of it. Being, she liked the interaction he was giving her. So in this movie, they're actually, in love, and they've been like doing their thing for like 2 years and trying to make things work. Android and a human, trying to make things work between them. And I loved the whole him glitching as he's trying to talk to her, because that's what we do as humans. I glitch out when I'm talking originally sometimes, just because I just get all into her eyes. Look, I'm glitching trying to talk about it right now. But anyway, I get that way. So that was really cool that they did that as an android, he was because he as a robot still can't even talk to this woman that he's in love with. But anyway, just wanted to point out I love that little scene. And then we get Corvus Glaive, which is the other Black Order member that stabs Vision through the heart, and all of a sudden it's just on again. And that's what I loved about this movie. It's just action scene after, then you get a little introduction. Oh, we're getting into this these characters right now. And then bam, then they're just fighting everybody. And intro Captain America. I mean, one of the best intros in all the 18 movies was the whole Avengers theme playing as it shows him stepping out. You know, that Proxima Midnight is the chick from the Black Order. Sorry, I didn't mean the word chick, but the woman from the Black Order that's fighting Black Widow and stuff, you know, and has a staff, throws the staff at Captain America, and he, bam, catches it and throws it, and you think he's throwing it at her, but he's actually throwing it to Black Widow, who swoops in on her knees and catches it, and starts whooping that girl's butt. And it was just incredible. Just all our heroes coming together, just scene after scene. Here's some more heroes. Here's some more heroes. Here's some more heroes. That's why this is my favorite comic movie, because it's given me everything that I loved in comics when I was reading them and collecting them. So, bam, just like this team up here. It's like this team up coming together in one movie would just be incredible. So, we got all those heroes interacting together, getting introduced. You know, they defeat Proxima Midnight, Corvus Glaive. They get transported up to the ship. Bam, they're gone. So, then we get to a little backstory. Oh, how it introduces space, you know, to the Guardians of the Galaxy. And the Guardians of the Galaxy made this movie for the most part. Every character, Thanos is the best character in this movie, in my opinion, and the most developed, and the best villain that they've had, and one of the best villains in cinematic history. Trust me, I understand there's a top tier 10 best villains in history, but when I say best villain in history, I'm saying just for me. I love Thanos. Just awesome. I'm going to get a painting of him and put it on my wall. He is just incredible. But anyway, right next to my Darth Vader painting. But anyway, that being said, the Guardians of the Galaxy get introduced, you know, to their, of course, the 80s music, which, you know, if you've seen the first Guardians of the Galaxy movies, you know, 1 and 2, you know how these characters roll. You know, they're funny, they're hip, you know, and Peter Quill's trapped in the 80s because that's when he got kidnapped off his home planet, off Earth. And, you know, and Kevin Bacon from Footloose is like his favorite. I mean, he idolizes Kevin Bacon, but anyway, and the movie Footloose. And that's said in this movie, which there are so many great lines and so many great jokes that I could get into, but I'm not going to. But this movie is really funny at the same time. It's real serious. And another point to why I love this movie so much. But anyway, they're introduced, and, you know, they get, you know, they're thrown in with Thor, who survived the explosion of the Asgardian ship at the beginning of the movie, and he kind of tells them what's going on. So they get together, him, Rocket, and Groot go to make Stormbreaker, which is an Easter egg I'll get to later, and the rest of the Guardians go to nowhere to try to stop Thanos. And that being said, we get a little glimpse of Gamora as a child and Thanos taking her in. And this is what I mean by the development of Thanos as a character, because he's doing what he thinks is right, you know, kill half the universe so the other half could thrive and grow to be greater numbers than the half that he killed. I get it. You know, I get his logic, you know, not in an evil way. I wouldn't, you know, genocide is never the answer, but from his point of view, he thinks he's right because he's seen it done to his home planet. His home planet was devastated and, you know, hungry, and then half of them got killed and they thrived. So he's seen how taking half away can make the other half grow stronger, and that's his whole plight, is to get the Infinity Stones to kill half the universe so the other half of the universe can thrive and build on itself after that. And that being said, he's on a mission to get these stones. So we go to nowhere, and, you know, but anyway, we get the little scene of Gamora, and if you hear, after I've seen this movie a few times, and after the first time you're just getting hit with and bombarded by just greatness every scene, but the second and third viewing I realized that I missed a lot, and I listened more, and I understood what was going on more. You know, I didn't feel so thrown into everything because I knew what was coming. So I enjoyed it the second time even more, and the third time even more. And I know once I see this movie 10 times, I'm going to know every line. I'm going to know every character development. I mean, everything that's happening in this movie. I will finally get it after that. But it's going to take a few times watching it. I'm just trying to give you everything that I loved. But anyway, when he's explaining her the balance of the universe and giving her that whole thing, and when his minions start killing everybody and she's looking to watch her family and friends be murdered, he turns her head, don't look at that, don't worry about that, focus on the balance, because that's him again talking to the audience. Don't look at all this death and destruction that I am doing. Look at my point. And that's what he's trying to tell her, and that's what he's trying to tell us, and that's when you really understand what his way of thinking is. So I really love that scene, even though I love every scene. Then we get to something I didn't like, and you get to that planet or the weapon building machine, whatever it's called, that E-Tree, I think is the name of the giant dwarf that's played by Peter Dinklage. I did not like that at all. I love Peter Dinklage as an actor, and I love Game of Thrones. It's in my top, 5 greatest TV shows of all time, and his character is great on that show. He didn't need to be thrown in here, because throwing him in here threw me out of it for a minute, because he's recognizable as, Tyrion on Game of Thrones. And just the way it was shot, you could tell, okay, we get it. He's a dwarf playing a giant dwarf. I get it, but just kind of throwing that out there, I just didn't like it. I thought it was kind of sloppy the way it was filmed, making him look like a giant, even though we know Peter Dinklage is short. So that's the only thing I really didn't like about the movie. That was my biggest critique. I didn't like a couple other little things, but that's my biggest one. And if that's the biggest one, and that's very small. So that being said, I didn't like him. Other people will. People love seeing that character, so I get it. People are going to love him just because it's Peter Dinklage and he's in the movie. But that being said, they create Stormbreaker, which Stormbreaker is owned by another Thor character in the comic books called Beta Ray Bill. And I love Beta Ray Bill because, hey, he's Beta Ray Billy. So I've always, since I've known about him, I've always loved his character. Thor has Mjolnir, which is like the hammer, and Beta Ray Bill has Stormbreaker, which is like a hammer and axe in one. So I've always liked his weapon. So them introducing Stormbreaker, I'm calling it right now. I have no information on this whatsoever. But in Thor Ragnarok 3 or maybe even Avengers 4, we don't know. But we will see Beta Ray Bill. And if you've seen the first Thor Ragnarok, and it shows the tower where the Grand Master lives, you see Beta Ray Bill's head is one of the champions on the side of the building. So he's definitely in the universe. Now we have Stormbreaker. We're getting Beta Ray Bill. So I'm excited about that. But anyway, I'm rambling on, so I'm going to get to the next thing, which is Thanos getting the Soul Gem and taking Gamora to that planet where the Soul Gem is. And Red Skull coming back after Captain America First Adventure. We haven't even seen him when he got teleported. Everybody thought he died, but he got teleported by the Space Gem in the Tesseract at the end of that movie. No one has known where he was until this film. Bam, he's guarding the Soul Gem. And who better to do that than the Red Skull? And I loved that Easter egg, and I loved them giving it to us. But even more than that, this whole scene was emotional for me because I felt for Thanos when he takes Gamora up there, and he doesn't know he has to kill Gamora. He's going up there just to get the Soul Gem. And when he realizes that you have to give up what you love to get it, and Gamora starts laughing at him. You've never loved anything. You don't love anything. She realizes that he's going to be defeated now because he can't get the Soul Gem. And then he turns around and he's crying because he realizes the only thing he has ever loved in his life is Gamora. He considers her his real daughter. And you see that, and even Red Skull sees that. Those tears aren't for you. They're for him, aren't for him, they're for you, because he realizes he's got to grab her and just throw her over the cliff. And he did it knowing he was giving up what he loved to do the right thing for himself, which was to get that Soul Gem. So bam, Gamora's dead. Whew. The deaths in this film were epic. I mean, they were very well done, and that scene really was like, oh my God. They are taking Game of Thrones. I hate to bring up Game of Thrones again, but Game of Thrones really introduced at least me to television taking risks. When they killed, spoiler alert for Game of Thrones, when they killed the main character of the first season, that's when I was into that show, and that's why I'm so into this movie, because they take risks in this movie. Marvel does an excellent job, and Kevin Feige, which is the head, showrunner of it all, he's just brilliant. He's just a brilliant man. You can tell he's a fan of the comic books himself, because he gives us this great quality stuff. Not just throw it together like some movie studios do, but it's just brilliant writing, and that scene really nailed it for me. I was like, the whole theater was dead silent. They had been laughing and cracking up at, Guardians of the Galaxy jokes and blah, 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 and all this stuff going on. Then you get serious. He just had to kill his daughter. What if you had to kill your daughter to do the right thing, to save millions? I mean, man, it was impactful. But anyway, moving on. Next thing, when Thor returns. Now, we get to Wakanda. I forgot to mention, the whole Wakanda thing and the characters, the heroes getting together with Black Panther. And if you haven't seen Black Panther, you don't understand the whole dynamic between him and M'Baku, teaming up. And when he says, thanks for coming, and he's like, something like, no problem, brother. And when he calls him brother, they were like at odds. They were trying to, win the kingdom. And they were at odds in Black Panther, and to see them come together in this movie was really cool for me. I mean, it was short but really sweet. So, like I said, just good writing, very short. Hey, thanks for coming, no problem, brother. And calling him brother was just another little impact that was really cool if you've seen the movie Black Panther. But anyway, our heroes get together. Then on Wakanda, then Thanos drops his minions down in these big towers that bring out these creatures. They're called Outriders in the comic books, but it's just hordes of them, and they're attacking Wakanda, and our heroes are fighting everybody, and to some extent they're not really winning all that great. I mean, they're kicking ass and taking aims, but for the most part they're getting overwhelmed until my favorite scene in the movie. Bam! Thor, rocket on his shoulder, Groot, I want a poster of that. I mean, that was just friggin' awesome. And he comes in just swinging the hammer, and Stormbreaker's just killing hundreds of those Outriders, and it was just beautiful. My favorite scene. This is my favorite portrayal of Thor in the MCU so far. Loved him in this movie. So that was a big major part for me in the movie. Then, you kind of flash to Thanos fighting the heroes on Titan, his home world that's now destroyed. And you get, Doctor Strange. You get everybody, getting together. And this was a big problem for people in the movie, is when they get Thanos down, and Doctor Strange, opens up the portal, and Mantis comes down and tries to put Thanos to sleep, but he's just so powerful you can't really put him to sleep. You could just hold him there for a minute. Again, brilliant writing, just friggin' brilliant. Then you get Star-Lord coming in. What happened to Gamora? He finds out that Thanos killed Gamora, which is Peter Quill's girlfriend. He's in love with her, the only girl he's ever loved, the only person he's ever loved, just like Thanos. And Thanos is like the dad, the boyfriend has to worry about the dad. And you see they've almost got the gauntlet off, and they're almost getting ready to defeat him, which they wouldn't have defeated him anyway, and I'll tell you why. But Peter Quill just starts punching him in the face, which makes him kind of snap out of everything and get everything together. Then he just starts fighting everybody. And I know people are going to be upset about that, about Peter Quill doing what he did, but that was the most human thing, and that is totally in his character. If you see how people react to death of loved ones in all the other Marvel movies, then this is totally in his character. This is how Peter Quill is. He snaps, and does what he thinks is right, which is a character flaw, but it's just human. We're flawed as humans, so this is him just being flawed. And it wouldn't have mattered if he would have smacked him around or not smacked him around, because Doctor Strange saw the 14,605 different futures, and only one is where they win. And the only one to where they win is the one where Tony survives. If you don't get that, you'll see that when Tony's about to die, forget the whole Peter Quill stuff. The real key moment is when Iron Man is fighting Thanos and just beating him up, and then Thanos is like, all that for a drop of blood. And I mean, he went all out with everything he had to get one drop of blood off of Thanos. Brilliant writing. Thanos ends up stabbing him, and the theater was like, you could feel the air being pulled into everybody's mouths in the theater. Again, dead silent. And this movie had a lot of moments like that where it's just dead silent. But bam, when Doctor Strange says, hey, if you spare his life, I'll give you the time gem. He says that because in the 14,605 scenarios he saw, I guarantee you that Iron Man was dead in all of the other ones except for the one where he's alive. And that's the only one they win. Tony has to be alive for them to win. That's why he gave him the stone. And people in the theater, why did he give him the stone? I mean, it's just one man's life over blah, blah, blah. Because he's the only one that saw the future. And every scenario he saw, Tony was dead. That one that we win, Tony was alive. I guarantee you that's the reason. Not that I know. I'm just guessing. I've just seen this movie just like you guys have. I have no inside track. It's not done in the comic books that way. But actually Nebula is the one that defeats Thanos in the comic books. But that's another story. Another thing I liked, him torturing Nebula in this movie was straight out of the comic books. He did torture her in the comic books, which she hates him so much in revenge, and which she might be the one who defeats him in the end of this. We don't know until the next movie. We don't know until any of the other movies. We are left at the end of this movie like with jaw open, which will lead me to my next scene, which is the end, when Thanos goes back to Earth. He's got all the Infinity Gems except for the Mind Gem that Vision has. And by this time, you've seen Thanos whoop up on everybody so easily that he's getting that gem no matter what. Even when Scarlet Witch is destroying it, and when she destroys it, I even knew. I was like, that's not the end. Because he's got the time gem now. I knew he was going to turn back time, and he did it, and I was like, I knew it. But I can call that kind of stuff just because I know this kind of stuff. And you would have called it too if you would have known. So I'm not special in any kind of way. But anyway, when he gets it, and then Thor throws Stormbreaker, and if you notice how powerful Stormbreaker is, the whole power of the Infinity Gauntlet, he's shooting at that weapon, and it's just plowing right through it with no trouble, and bam, hits him in the chest. Now, that being said, when Thor comes down and he starts pushing into him, I told you die for that, killing his brother and half the Asgardians, pushing that thing, Stormbreaker into his chest, I was just like, maybe he won't do the snap. Because if you don't know the comic books and haven't seen any reviews or anything like that, if you go into this movie totally fresh, you have no clue about the whole snap. In the comic books, he gets the gauntlets, gets the gems, and snaps his finger and kills half the universe. In the comic book, he does it for Lady Death, which is he kills half the universe to impress her because he's in love with her. That's the biggest difference in this movie compared to the comic books. He does it for balance in the universe, not to impress Death, which I'm cool with. I thought they were going to do Hela from Thor Ragnarok as Lady Death, and he was going to be in love with her, but they didn't do that, so it's all good. I'm glad that they did it the way they did it because this movie was incredible and the writing powerful. But anyway, that moment when he's pushing that Stormbreaker in, he's like, and listen to the way, and it's not just what Thanos says, it's how he says it. And I didn't really catch it till the second time. You should have went for the head. It wasn't, you should have went for the head. You should have went for the head. Like, ha ha ha! And he snaps his finger and bam! And even right at that moment, Thor's like, no! Boom. Flash to Thanos looking at Gamora, and he's like, and my theory, he's trapped in the soul gem. Don't know, but in that moment he is. He's looking at her. What did it cost? Everything. And you see it on his face that he didn't want to kill everybody. He just thought that was the right thing to do. And he didn't want to have to kill her. That everything to him is her. And that's what he means by everything. He lost her. She was everything to him. And you see it when he's crying, when he throws her over the edge and kills her. But anyway, then you flash to everybody turning into dust and disappearing. And I was blown away. I thought they did an immensely good job of not just telling it that way, but showing it that way, turning into dust and like kind of fading into space or whatever, was brilliant. And if you notice, the core Avengers are the ones that stayed until you get to the post-credit scene and you see Nick Fury, who created the Avengers, he starts dissipating into dust. And of course Hawkeye wasn't in this movie, so we don't know if he really turned to dust, which I doubt. I think personally that him and Ant-Man are going to team up to kind of help save the universe. But anyway, all that was brilliant. And you flash to Captain America just going, oh God, because he knew that half the universe was dead and they couldn't stop it. Impactful. This movie, the villain wins. And I not that I want villains to win, and not that I root for evil, but it rarely gets done. You know, the superheroes always win. I love it when the villains win, and not just in superhero movies, but in all genres of film. I kind of like it when the end's ambiguous and you don't really know what happened because the villain just won, and that doesn't happen normally. So you're kind of like, durr. And if you watch any of my other reviews of movies that have those endings like that, you'll see that this is not new. I love these type endings. And when you see Thanos kind of sitting on the hill, coming out of this like shack, you know, and sitting down and looking at the sunset and smiling because he realized that he won. And then it just fades to black and it's like credits start rolling. It was just freaking awesome. So, and it made me feel like The Empire Strikes Back, which is my favorite movie of all time because I love the whole dynamic, the family dynamic. You know, I'm the son having to fight my dad. I love that about that, but not that this movie was like that, but I love the ambiguous ending. The villains win at the end of that film. You know, it's not a complete movie, even though it's a self-contained, has a first, second, third act. I get it, and so did this movie, even though I think the first, second, third act are all third acts. If you've watched all the other movies, these are the endings of those movies, or at least not the endings. Avengers 4 will be the official ending of this whole story arc. So we still have another year of movies to go. We got Ant-Man and the Wasp coming out in 2 months. We have Captain Marvel coming out in March. And if you didn't know, on that beeper, that little device that Nick Fury has, that symbol that comes up, that's Captain Marvel. And Kevin Feige has already stated that Captain Marvel is the most powerful character in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. She's actually not in the top 10 most powerful beings in comic books, but she ranks up there. She's high. She's powerful, really powerful. So it's going to be up to her to save the day and the rest of the Avengers, and we'll have to just see what happens in Ant-Man and see what happens in Captain Marvel in March, and then finally Avengers 4 next May. So, whew, that's a whole movie in 33 minutes. I said at the beginning I didn't want this review to be 30 minutes, but I had to get this all out. There's more I want to talk about, but if I do, this will go an hour, and you guys don't want that. You've probably heard enough from me today. So I'm wrapping it up. What did you guys think of Avengers Infinity War? Please let me know in the comments below. If you have questions about this movie, I've got answers. Let me know your questions in the comments below, and I will try to answer them to the best of my abilities. I know all these characters intimately. I know all the movies. I know most of the comic books. So I'm your source of information if you want to know stuff about this film. If you're kind of lost, what you need to see to understand what's going on in this movie, you can catch that in my non-spoiler review. But what did you think about it? Please, I want to know in the comments below, guys. Let me know what you thought of Avengers Infinity War. It's my favorite comic book movie of all time. Is it yours? Please, let's discuss. That being said, remember to like my videos and subscribe to my channel. And as always, make yourself happy every day, guys. And the only way to do that is to remember, the only thing stopping you is you stopping. Bam!